guess we can go ahead and get started for tonight. We're going to talk about the alchemy of attention tonight. Now, we've been talking about luck and gold, that we don't see all the gold that's around us. And tonight we're going to talk about our attention and how our gold forms. We can create our own gold. Okay, so let's get going. I'd like to start with saying good evening. I'm glad you're all here. I appreciate you being here with me for this class. Have you ever noticed that some people seem to stumble into opportunities while others feel like nothing ever works out for them? Are you one of the people that stumble into opportunities, or do you feel like it never works out for you? We live in the same world, it's the same economy, and it's the same general circumstances. But one person will say, wow, I got lucky. Yeah, it never works out. I understand. I've said that many times. Yet one person says, wow, I got lucky. And another says, nothing ever goes my way. So tonight, I want us to explore this question. What if luck isn't random at all? What if luck isn't random at all? What if it has something to do with where we place our attention and how long we're willing to keep it there? Because wherever attention stays long enough, something begins to form. And sometimes that something turns out to be gold. So tonight we're exploring what I'm calling the alchemy of attention, where your gold forms. Hey, Kitty. Welcome. That brings us to something that seems very simple, but quietly shapes almost every experience that we have in life. And that is our attention, or in some cases, the lack thereof. And I know we've all heard that where your attention goes, your experience follows. Rebel talked about it last week. Kitty talks about it. It's an important part of dream interpretation, and sound healing begs you to put your attention on what and where you feel. So most people think their lives are shaped primarily by circumstances. But if you watch closely, you'll notice something interesting. Two people can live in the same circumstances, in the same town, with similar resources, and yet one person seems to notice opportunities everywhere, while the other feels like nothing ever works out. Often we call that difference luck. But tonight we're going to explore something deeper. Because what many people call luck is actually connected to where attention rests and how long it stays there. You could say that attention is a kind of alchemy. Where it rests long enough, something begins to form. And sometimes that something can be gold. Attention is the tool that sculpts our experience. Have you ever noticed that when you start thinking about something, you suddenly start seeing it everywhere? Examples, you're buying a new car and suddenly that same car is everywhere. Or you're thinking about starting a business, a new idea, and suddenly you're meeting entrepreneurs or someone else has beat you to it because of attention. Focusing on health and suddenly noticing food choices. When you start paying attention to your health, You start paying attention to what you eat. And the more you pay attention to what you eat, the better your health gets. So attention does filter our reality. Most of us go through life believing we see the world exactly as it is. But in reality, we only see the tiny portion of reality that our attention selects. Our minds are constantly filtering information. At every moment, there are thousands of things happening around us. Sounds, ideas, opportunities, connections, people, solutions, but our minds filter most of it out. So our question now becomes, what determines what we notice? What determines what we notice? And what do you think determines what we notice? What do you think determines what we notice? You might have any ideas? What we focus on. Exactly. One of the strongest forces that directs attention is something very simple. Curiosity. Curiosity is the ignition switch of attention. Mindset, yes, that's you're being curious, you're using your attention. Curiosity is one of the most powerful forces in the human mind. The moment curiosity appears, attention wakes up. Have you ever wanted to know more about something and your body perks up and your mind starts to question and off you go on an adventure? Yep. Before that curiosity, the mind is mostly running on habit. It notices the same things, thinks the same thoughts, and walks the same mental path. But the moment curiosity appears, something changes. The mind begins to ask, why is that happening? What is this about? What might be possible here? And suddenly, attention becomes alive instead of automatic. One of the access lessons that we learned for access consciousness is to live in the question. Everything should be a question, because when you question everything, your attention stays because of the curiosity. When you start asking questions, you stay focused on it. And when you stay focused on it, things begin to move. So that some of the questions used by access are, what else is possible? Where did this come from? And what am I to learn from it? And how does it get any better than this? And that one is tricky because it's how. You know, it's not show me or whatever. It's how does it get any better than this? Even when it's bad. And even when it's good, it gets better. Yes, I said that right. How does it get any better than this? If things are going crazy, keep asking that question and they will align. Okay? How does it get any better than this? And is what's right about this that I'm not getting? That's another one. If things are out of whack, or there's a problem, or you just can't figure out why it's happening this way, what is right about it that you're not getting? Because there's lessons in everything, and if we can understand that, the disturbance in the energy goes away and the energy can smooth out. Okay? So many of us grew up hearing a phrase that quietly discouraged curiosity, and you've probably heard it. Curiosity killed the cat. Okay? I've heard it. And that phrase has been used for generations to mean don't ask too many questions, don't look too closely, and stay where it's safe. But interestingly, the original saying was actually longer. It was curiosity killed the cat, but satisfaction brought it back. Okay? Somewhere along the way, society kept the warning and dropped the reward. Curiosity is not dangerous. Curiosity is one of the ways the mind discovers possibility. Okay? To illustrate that, I have a story. The man who found luck in a field. There was once a man who was considered the luckiest person in his village. Everything seemed to work out for him. His crops grew well, his business succeeded, opportunities appeared around him. And the people in the village would often say, "That man is just lucky." One day, a neighbor finally asked him, "Tell me honestly, how did you get so lucky?" And the man laughed and said, "I'm not lucky, I'm curious." The neighbor didn't understand. It says, so the man told him a story. Years earlier, he'd been walking across a field that everyone in the village passed every day. It looked like any other field, nothing special about it. But as he walked through the field, he noticed something strange. There was a small patch of grass that grew thicker and greener than the rest. Now, most people would have walked right past it, but something in him became curious. He thought, why does that grass grow differently here? So he knelt down and brushed some dirt aside. Under the soil, he found a stone, and that made him a little more curious. So he dug a little deeper. And beneath the stone, he discovered a small stream flowing under the ground. That underground stream became the water source that allowed him to irrigate the land and grow crops even in dry seasons. His farm eventually became the most productive in the area. To everyone else, it looked like luck. But to him, it was simply curiosity followed by attention. And he told his neighbors something the village never forgot. Luck is often just something curious people find. Luck is something that curious people find. How many opportunities do you think we walk past every day simply because we weren't curious enough to pause? How many do you think we walk past every single day? Most of life's opportunities don't arrive as a flashing sign. They appear as small details, things we almost overlook. Curiosity expands what we notice. This story illustrates something important. The world is full of things we walk past every day. Ideas, opportunities, connections. But if curiosity isn't active, our attention doesn't pause long enough to see them. Curiosity slows us down just enough to ask, what's happening here? And that simple pause can reveal things that were invisible just moments before. So let's try a quick experiment to experience this. Okay? So we're doing an exercise. It's called the curiosity shift. So take a moment and look around your room. Just observe what you normally notice. Chairs, walls, people around you. Just let your eyes land wherever they naturally go. Give you a moment to look around. Now, I want you to try something different. Look around again. But this time, ask yourself the question, what have I not noticed yet? What have I not noticed yet? Look for something small, something unusual, something your eyes skipped over the first time. Now let me ask you something. What did you notice the second time that you didn't see before? What did you notice the second time that you didn't see before? Here's the interesting thing. Nothing in the room changed. The only thing that changed was your curiosity. And the moment curiosity appeared, your attention expanded. Expensive. That's good. Flash in the cave. This is a visual metaphor for attention. Let's imagine for a moment that life is like standing inside a very large cave. The cave represents all the possibilities around you. Inside that cave, there are ideas, opportunities, solutions, connections, conversations, new directions. But the cave is dark. You cannot see everything at once. Instead, you're holding a flashlight. The flashlight represents your attention. Wherever you point the flashlight, that is the part of the cave you can see. What the flashlight reveals is if you point the flashlight toward the ground, you see the ground. If you point it toward the wall, you see the wall. There may be treasures, pathways, opening elsewhere in the cave that you simply haven't pointed the light toward yet. Are you with me? You got your flashlight, you're in the dark, but you got to find the treasures and the pathways. They exist. You just haven't illuminated them. So the question becomes, where are you pointing your light? Unlocked? Yes, unlocked opportunities. We got to find them. We got to pay attention. Where are you pointing your light? Because wherever your attention rests, that part of life becomes your experience of reality. Okay, where your attention flows, yeah, that way. You start creating your own experience. Okay? How curiosity moves the light. Now here's where curiosity comes in. See, the light was our attention. Now we add curiosity. Curiosity is what makes us move the flashlight. Without curiosity, people often keep pointing the light in the same place. They see the same things. They experience the same patterns. But curiosity makes someone wonder, what's over there? And they move the light. Suddenly they see something new. A path, an opening, something interesting they didn't notice before. This also explains why some people seem lucky. They move their flashlight around more often. They explore. They look into corners others ignore. Every once in a while, their lights land on something valuable. And people say they were lucky. But often they simply pointed their attention somewhere others hadn't looked before. There are so many things in this world that are available to us if we look, if we have the attention and the curiosity to seek it out. Connecting it back to the alchemy. Alchemy is a transformation of ordinary things into something valuable. Oh, that's true. Have we just become so content with what we have that we don't want more? I think we want more, we just don't want to work for it. That really jumbled. We want more, we just don't want to work for it. We don't want to, be curious and get up and go find things. So where are you pointing? Okay, where did I go? Alchemy is the transformation of ordinary things into something valuable. And attention is one of the most powerful tools of transformation we have. Attention is one of the most powerful tools of transformation we have. So, because everywhere our attention shines long enough, you begin to discover things that were invisible before. Ideas, opportunities, possibilities, and sometimes gold. So I ask again, where are you pointing your light? Where are you pointing your light? Take just a moment and think about that. I'm going to have a drink of water. Thank you for the pause. How attention creates opportunity. How can it create an opportunity just by looking at something or seeing it or recognizing it? Here's where the alchemy begins. Curiosity doesn't make life more interesting. It changes what your mind is able to see. I'll repeat that. Curiosity does not make life more interesting. It changes what your mind is able to see. When attention wakes up, it begins collecting information, little signals, patterns, connections, and many opportunities in life are not loud or obvious. They're quiet. They can appear as a small idea. Yes, very much so. A small idea, a passing conversation, a tiny shift in direction, or a connection between two things. But if attention is asleep, those signals pass right by us. We never see them. When attention stays somewhere long enough with curiosity, something interesting begins to happen. Layers appear. What first looked ordinary starts revealing possibility. This is why inventors, artists, scientists, and entrepreneurs often seem lucky. They simply stay curious longer than most people. They keep their attention somewhere long enough to uncover something valuable. And when that happens, the world says, wow, they got lucky. But what really happened? What really happened? Curiosity opened the door. Attention stayed. Opportunity revealed itself. Then we have to realize that attention creates movement. We've got curiosity that created the attention. Attention made us aware, and we're now aware of the energy, and energy becomes motion. Okay? Why some people seem consistently lucky. Okay. Before we finish, are we close to finish? No. This has to do with what I call attention momentum. Momentum is a simple idea. Once something begins moving in a direction, it tends to keep moving in that direction unless something interrupts it. So we have a well-known pattern. Curiosity creates attention. Attention creates form. Form builds momentum. And energy in motion is emotion. Okay, let me say that again. I get those words cleared up here. Curiosity creates attention. Attention held, important word, attention held creates form. Form builds momentum, and energy in motion is emotion. How many times have we talked about requiring the emotion or vibration to create our dreams? We have to feel it. To really create, we have to feel it. Curiosity, attention, form, momentum, emotion. We've got it all laid out there in a line. If we can do that and stay by it, then we can begin to create lots of things. As the saying goes, take the time to smell the flowers instead of just admiring them and walk by. Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Kitty. So attention builds pathways. Whatever we repeatedly give our attention to begins forming mental pathways. The brain becomes familiar with those patterns. Okay? Our attention is starting to create pathways, and our brain becomes familiar with the pattern. So if someone spends most of their time focusing on problems, disappointments, and limitations, their mind becomes very skilled at noticing those things. Not because life contains only problems, but because attention has developed momentum in that direction. Their mind now scans the world for confirmation of what it already expects. And I'm sure we've all been, at some point in our life, focused on problems and feeling like those will never, ever end. They end when we take the attention off of them. Okay? Opportunity momentum. Same thing happens in the opposite direction. When someone develops a habit of curiosity, when they regularly ask questions like, what might be possible here? What am I missing? What could this lead to? Their attention begins building momentum toward possibility and discovery. Over time, they start to notice the ideas, connections, conversations, unexpected openings, and when others observe their life, they often say, that person is so lucky. But what they're really seeing is attention momentum. A mind that has practiced noticing opportunity long enough that it has become natural. And I think we are all seeing that with Kitty and the podcast and the things that are sprouting from that. You know, the attention has remained there. It's growing, expanding. It's going in many different ways. The interesting thing about momentum is that it doesn't require a huge change. It usually starts with very small shifts repeated consistently. A new question, a moment of curiosity, a willingness to look a little deeper. Right, going through it, not staying in it, exactly. So a willingness to look a little deeper that creates small shifts that gradually redirect attention. And over time, attention begins revealing things that once went unnoticed. Okay? Attention begins revealing things that once went unnoticed. And it doesn't have to be a physical object, okay? It's mind. It's thinking about new things, asking questions in your mind. Always live in the question, okay? If you study people who seem lucky, you'll often notice something about them. They remain curious, they pay attention, they follow small ideas long enough to see where they lead. They explore possibilities instead of dismissing them too quickly. And because of that, they stumble upon things that others walk past. Not because they were chosen by luck, but because their attention kept moving toward discovery. So if attention has momentum, then the question becomes, where is my attention currently moving? Where is my attention currently moving? Toward problems or toward possibilities? Toward certainty or toward curiosity. Because wherever attention continues to move, that is where your experience of life will begin to grow. And sometimes, when curiosity keeps attention awake long enough, that's where your gold begins to form. Gold rarely appears to the person who is convinced nothing is there, but curiosity has a way of leading attention to places where treasure has been quietly waiting all along. So, one thing to don't forget, one thing to remember is the enemy of attention. Now, there's something that shuts down attention faster than almost anything else, and it's important to recognize when it's happening. How many times have you had the thought that you're certain? I'm certain it's going to be this way. Certainty becomes the block to curiosity. When the mind becomes certain, it stops looking. If we believe we already know everything about a situation, curiosity disappears. When curiosity disappears, attention collapses. We stop noticing, we stop exploring, we stop discovering. Certainty closes the door that curiosity keeps open. The question that keeps attention awake, and this is something I want to offer you for this next week, whenever something happens, good or difficult, pause for a moment and ask yourself one question. What might be possible here that I haven't noticed yet? Or what else is possible? What are the infinite possibilities? That's even stronger than what else is possible. What are the infinite possibilities? That question does something very powerful. It interrupts automatic thinking. It interrupts automatic thinking. Okay? It widens the field of attention. It gives you more to look at, to be curious about. And it invites the mind to explore instead of react. Sometimes the answer will come quickly, sometimes it won't. But the question keeps curiosity alive, and curiosity keeps attention awake. Now let's bring this back to the idea of alchemy. Alchemy was the ancient practice of transforming ordinary material into gold. Alchemy is the transformation of ordinary things into something valuable. And attention is one of the most powerful tools of transformation we have. Because wherever our attention shines long enough, it begins to discover things that were invisible before. The ideas, the opportunities, the possibilities, and sometimes even gold. But there's a kind of alchemy that happens in everyday life, and it requires your attention. Because wherever attention stays long enough with curiosity, something begins to form. And you could think of attention like a miner searching for gold. Most people walk across the land. Most people walk across the land, and curious person starts digging. And gold has always been discovered by those willing to look a little deeper. Okay, I'm going to say that again. Gold has always been discovered by those willing to look a little deeper. Where in your life right now might there be hidden gold if you give it a little more curious attention? Some areas you might think about are relationship, creative idea, problem that you've been avoiding, a skill that you haven't developed yet, a class you haven't planned yet. Sometimes the gold in our lives isn't somewhere else. Sometimes it's already present and waiting for our attention. So tonight, I'm going to leave you with this thought. Life is full of hidden streams beneath the surface of ordinary moments. Curiosity is what makes us stop and look. Attention is what allows us to uncover what is already there. And sometimes when we discover something valuable, the world calls it luck. But often it was simply this. Curiosity kept attention awake long enough to reveal something waiting to be found. And that is where your gold forms. Okay. So there we go. I hope you all enjoyed that. You're very welcome. I'm glad you were here. Appreciate it. Next week, we're going to talk about magic versus luck. What is magic and what is luck? The difference between the two and how to use both. Okay? One of the things I realized when I was putting this together was that we have the opportunity to change so many things in our lives that it's up to us to make the choices. Okay? I can talk about attention, I can talk about curiosity, I can do all those things, and those that listen and go home and just, you were back to the regular schedule, nothing happens. So it's up to us to make the choice. And that is the true answer to all of these things. All the things that we work with, try to fix, choice is the answer. We always have a choice. Always. So, okay, I'm going to leave it there. Yeah, certainty. Well, okay, I'm going to kind of go off on the access side of this. Once you create an opinion, and certainty is an opinion, okay, or a belief, nothing can change about that information until you change how you see it, okay? When you hold a certainty about something, that something stays that way until you see a different way to see it, a different perspective. And that is really hard to kind of understand in some cases because, certainty is, we all have opinions, and that's part of our problem. We have beliefs and opinions that have absolutely no truth to them other than what we've learned. So as long as they're held, if you have someone in your life, excuse me, if you have someone in your life that is a pain, they will always be a pain until you see them as something else. You're holding that energy for them. Okay? You're holding the energy for them once you've made that choice and judgment. Doesn't change anything until you do. So, we'll go into that another time. I want to say thank you and good night. I appreciate you all being here.